Mauricio Dubón can play anywhere. Did the Braves let him play shortstop and sign a big bat? Or do they sign a shortstop and let him be a utility guy? Let's talk about it. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today for Friday, November 21st. Your source for news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby. You can follow me on social media at Crosby Baseball. You can follow the show on X, Braves_today. We have a Facebook page and Instagram as well. And you can find all of my written work, BravesToday.com. That's the Braves Today Substack, as this is both a podcast and a newsletter. We're probably part of the Believe Podcast Network and presented to you by FanDuel. Atlanta sports are just killing us right now. The Hawks aren't even on the board for regular season wins because Vegas just doesn't know what to do with them. But if you have a feeling like, hey, they're not going to do it this year, it'll get updated soon. Go to FanDuel.com, download the FanDuel app today and get started. Tonight, is the non-tender deadline. We're going to see some moves. We're going to see some trades. We're going to see contracts extended, guys get non-tendered, whatever. We'll break those guys down in the third segment. But before we do that, I want to talk about the flexibility that Mauricio Dubón gives you. We talked yesterday. We had clips from Alek Manoah talking about how Dubón does two things for the Braves this upcoming season. Thing number one is he gives you insurance at premium positions. He can play shortstop at an above average defensive level. He can play center field at above average defensive level. He is, in every sense of the word, a ball player. And so because of that, you have insurance at those specific positions. You always need a backup shortstop. You always need a backup center fielder. With Mauricio Dubón, you have both things. But thing number two that it gives the Braves, besides insurance, is flexibility. Because he can play anywhere on the field. Last year, he played 7 defensive positions. And in his career, he's been positive defensively on StatCast in all of them. He's done everything but pitch and catch in his career. And so that unlocks, one, some leverage in free agency, but two, some flexibility. And I want to talk about that because I'm starting to wonder, do the Braves approach the offseason differently now that they have Dubon? And by that I mean, we knew the shopping list going into the offseason was shortstop, starting pitcher, bullpen. For better or for worse, Alek said that adding a big bat was not on the front burner of priorities for the Braves. But given the fact that Dubon can play shortstop, and he can do it from a defensive perspective at an above average level, do you maybe still add a big bat? Let's break down both paths. Because something we've asked for a while has been to get a utility man. And so that's the natural inclination of where I start thinking about Dubon is go ahead and sign a shortstop anyway. And Mauricio Dubón is playing 4 days a week, 5 days a week at a different position every day, giving guys either a complete day off or giving guys what is fundamentally a half day, right? You let them DH. They don't have to play defense. And you can work a little bit of matchups here. Like, for instance, Michael Harris in his career has historically been better against righties than lefties. Maybe you give him the day off when you face a lefty and you let Mauricio Dubón play center field. Maybe you, days that Drake Baldwin is not your designated hitter, he's behind the plate. Instead of playing Sean Murphy, maybe you let Jurickson Profar DH and you put Dubon in left. Or you let Ronald Acuna Jr. DH and you put Dubon in right. You can do this because in his career, Dubon is a plus 40 in fielding run value and a 45 in plus outs above average. It doesn't matter what position you have him playing. He's going to give you above average defense. Last year at shortstop, he played 206 innings. Guess what? Plus 8 outs above average. Second base, he played 318 innings. Guess what? Plus 8 outs above average. You keep going. Third base, they had him play 141 innings. Plus 3 outs above average. You can keep going. Center field, he played 89 innings. Plus 1 outs above average. When you look at the fielding components for an infielder, the 4 defensive directions, you're moving in, you're moving back, you're moving to third base, you're moving to first base. Like those directions. He grades out positively in all of them. When you look at the outfield, moving back into his left or to his left, moving back into his right or to the right, moving back, moving straight in. Either way, he's not bad at anything. Again, he's a ball player in every sense of the imagination. And this is a Braves team that the last 3 years, right? You've had to use defensive replacements or suspension replacements, I guess, technically in left field, at every position but first base. Austin Riley's missed 115 games. Ozzie Albies has missed 82 games. Michael Harris has missed 78 games. Ronald Acuna Jr. has missed 183 games in 3 seasons. And I think, one, the guys that you've had to replace those players have not been very good. Some of them were veterans who were DFA'd by their previous teams. Whit Merrifield, Gio Urshela, Kevin Biggio, that was all 24. Some of them have been veterans or guys who are free agents or were not signed when they became free agents. This was like their last stop. Jared Kelenic. Braves let him go. He'll be lucky to sign a minor league deal this winter. Adam Duvall played for the Braves in 24, didn't play in 25. Alex Verdugo was cut mid-season. He did not get picked up by anybody, not even for a minor league deal. You've had to play substandard replacements at every position you've had an injury. And even if guys were decent defenders, offensively they still struggled. That's not Mauricio Dubón. He's a career 257 hitter. Now, I will say he has regressed a little bit in recent seasons. He had a 241 last year. Expected batting average was a 246. But as recently as 2023, he hit 278. He's been a good offensive performer. You've not had a utility man that you trusted both offensively and defensively since you had both Martin Prado and Omar Infante in Atlanta. Prado spent 7 years in Atlanta. He hit 296. He got MVP votes twice. He was an all-star in 2010. He played 6 different positions. I believe he played all 4 infield positions and both outfield corners. Omar Infante was here for 3 years. He hit 309 with 6 different defensive positions. You've not really had a high-quality utility guy since then. And for the most part, it's kind of been okay. You've either run strict platoons. I'm thinking about left field in recent years. Eddie Rosario and Kevin Pillar in 2023. You ran platoons, or guys just played every day. Matt Olson's not missed a game since he joined the team after 2021. But, again, Walt Weiss said on 680 The Fan when he went on there after being hired, he intends to rotate guys a little more often. He intends to use backups, give guys days off, and things like that. Getting Dubon gives you the ability to do that while not taking a massive hit, either offensively or defensively. And it's very easy to see how you can sign a shortstop, and I'm thinking about Ha-Seong Kim here, but maybe it's a trade. Maybe you trade for a Jordan Lawler or a CJ Abrams or, whatever. Ezekiel Tovar of the Rockies. He's friends with Ronald Acuna Jr., so maybe that matters. I don't know. But maybe, you get a shortstop somehow. And Dubon is that ninth hitter in your lineup. He's not batting ninth. I'd put Michael Harris at 9. But he either is playing a defensive position while a guy gets a day off and Drake Baldwin DHs, or Baldwin's behind the plate and Dubon's in the field, and the guy who would be at that spot is the DH. Maybe he plays third and Riley gets a half day. Maybe he plays left and Profar gets a half day. Maybe he plays second and Aussie gets a half day. That, to me, is the highest and best use of Mauricio Dubon. It gives you the ability to keep your starters healthy by either giving them a day off or giving them a half day without losing defense or offense for the day that they're out of the lineup. But it's entirely possible that Atlanta instead says, let's let Dubon play shortstop and let's go find a bat. We'll talk about that next, right here on Braves Today. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsay Crosby. One scenario the Braves might follow this offseason is just go get a shortstop. Go sign Ha-Seong Kim, whoever it might be, whatever. And you have leverage to do that now, right? Because Alex Anthopoulos made a point to put the quotes out there that they're comfortable with Dubon playing shortstop. So now you can call a bluff of Scott Boras and maybe get Kim at a slightly smaller deal than you expected, right? But they are comfortable with him playing shortstop. Atlanta's internal defensive metrics say he should be good there. They feel comfortable with him there. They asked him, and he said he was comfortable playing shortstop every day. And so maybe there's a scenario out there where the Braves say, hey, rather than have you be a utility guy and play all over, we're going to have you play shortstop every day. And what we're going to use that roster spot for and that offensive flexibility we have now is we're going to get a big bat. Because I think it's easy to forget, because he had a bad 2025, it's easy to forget how good Marcell Ozuna was the last 2 years. If you remember, his 2023 started off dreadfully, to the point where on this very podcast, we discussed, do you just DFA Marcell Ozuna? And to Brian Snitker's credit, he stuck with them. He left him in the lineup. Ozuna got hot down in Miami to start the month of May and did not cool off for almost 2 full seasons. In 23 and 24 combined, Marcell Ozuna hit 79 home runs and drove in 204 RBI. He hit 289. He had a 916 OPS. And yes, the pitching injuries really kind of doomed you in 2025. But the fact that he dropped to a 232 average with 21 homers and 68 RBI, should have gotten one more, and 145 games didn't give you kind of a offensive floor to keep you afloat. Yes, the reason 25 was so bad was because you lost all of your pitchers, all of your opening day rotation to the 60-day IL. But if you have Marcell Ozuna hitting 290 on a 40-homer, 100 RBI pace, that definitely helps you stay afloat while you figure out what to do in the rotation. You didn't have that this year. You didn't have that baseline you could count on. If Mauricio Dubon were to play shortstop, the Braves would have the ability to go out and find a bat for the lineup, find a source of power. I don't know what that would look like. I think we're all kind of in the assumption that a full-time designated hitter is not in the cards this year. Alex Anthopoulos said at the GM meetings they weren't going to close the door on anything. But as of now, they didn't have any plans to bring back Marcell Ozuna. I think that's the right move. Having a guy that can only play designated hitter means that you just don't really have a lot of flexibility, like I said, to give guys a half day, to try and give them a bit of a blow to keep them healthy. At the same time, and I'm not saying they'll do this, but if they could get some sort of amazing offensive performer like a Kyle Schwarber, who hit 56 home runs and drove in 130 last year, that obviously is more impactful for the lineup than signing, say, Ha-Sung Kim and having Bo Bichette as your utility man while a different everyday regular is in the DH spot every day. And it doesn't even necessarily need to be a full-time designated hitter. Maybe the Braves say, we're going to go out and we're going to bring back Ozuna. He had surgery on the hip and he's healthy. Maybe he can go back to giving us 40 homers and 100 RBI. Maybe they go out and they say, we want our outfield defense to be better. And they pony up the money for Cody Bellinger. I don't think that's a great idea. And Jake Mastriani and I are going to do a show next week. It'll be on both my feed and his feed, where we discuss Cody Bellinger and why he thinks it's a good idea and why I don't think it is. But maybe you do that. Maybe you add a guy like a Ryan O'Hearn who can play corner outfield. He can play some first base for you. Maybe you add a platoon bat like a Miguel Andujar, guy I've talked about before. He's not good defensively, but he can stand at third base. He can stand at first base. He can play both corners, right? A Rob Refsnyder. He can play corner outfield. He can play first base. He is lethal against lefties. Maybe there's a scenario where, like, hey, when you have a righty on the mound, Sean Murphy's behind the plate, Drake Baldwin's your DH. When you have a lefty on the mound, Drake Baldwin's behind the plate because he hit better against lefties than righties last year. And a guy like a Refsnyder or Andujar is either in the field or at DH. Maybe you do something like that. And what I think Atlanta needs to figure out is, what is the better approach for the club? What makes the 2026 Atlanta Braves better? My first instinct is to say, having one, the defensive versatility of Dubon, as well as the ability to replace your first significant injury at almost any position on the field, is a bigger deal than adding that bat. But here's the thing. Do we know that's true? Mauricio Dubon has been very good in his career offensively. He wasn't actually that good last year. He hit .241 with a .355 slug. It's a .644 OPS. It's like a 78 OPS plus. Is he better than Nick Allen? Yes. Nick Allen was like a 53 WRC plus. So is adding Dubon at short an improvement? Yes. It's not that much of an improvement. It's not like he's a league average bat like a healthy Ha-Sung Kim has been. And arguably the strength of Dubon, the best attribute that he has, is his ability to play a bunch of positions at a high level. If you play him at shortstop every day, you lose that. You can't play him at third or at second or in center or in right or whatever if he's playing shortstop every day. But at the same time, imagine adding a 40 home run bat to the 2026 Atlanta Braves. What would that do? When you look at 25, their leading homer guy was Matt Olson, and he had 29. And the Braves only had 4 players with more than 20 homers. Olson had 29. Acuna and Ozuna had 21. Harris had 20. And after that, There's a bunch of dudes in the teens. Drake Baldwin had 19. Riley and Albies had 16. They both, Riley played 102 games, right? Sean Murphy had 16 homers in 94 games. Profar had 14 in 80 games. Eli White had 10 homers in 105 games. Does adding a 40 homer, 100 RBI bat, does that offset losing the defensive versatility of Mauricio Dubón? I don't know the answer to that. The team probably does. They have, if they're like any other MLB front office, they have internal models where they can plug in different factors and get expected run totals for the season. It feels like we're not going to know the answer to this. Because you have to remember, it's not just what lets you score more runs. It's how much does it cost to get that different outcome. And I genuinely believe Alex Anthopoulos when he says we don't know what Mauricio Dubón's role is going to be. Because it's going to be dependent on how the offseason unfolds. If the Braves up in a situation where they're able to get Ha-Seong Kim at a perfectly reasonable deal, they make that deal and they put Kim as a shortstop. If they're not, if their options are an expensive trade or an expensive signing of a qualifying offer player like a Bo Bichette, they might pivot and say, let's find a bat that won't cost us a qualifying offer, a top 30 overall draft pick that's worth $3+ million, and let's put Dubon at short. I really feel like they're genuinely in a good place now. They have leverage in the effort to sign Ha-Seong Kim by not being desperate to Scott Boras, because Anthopoulos came out and said that Nick Allen wasn't good enough, right? He said the number one priority was upgrading shortstop. So that was a public vote of non-confidence in Nick Allen. The last thing you can do is get in a stare down with Scott Boras when you've already publicly expressed no confidence in the option you have at shortstop if you don't sign Scott Boras' guy. Now, you've expressed confidence publicly in the fallback option if you don't sign Scott Boras' guy. I genuinely believe Anthopoulos when he says he's going to see what happens. And they're going to figure out what to do with Dubon as the offseason unfolds. And I'm really curious to see what they do. One of the things that will determine how the offseason unfolds is the non-tender deadline. By tonight, the team needs to decide on all of their arbitration-eligible players. Do they offer them a contract? Do they not? Do they plan to go to arbitration with them? Do they make an agreement ahead of time? They've already done it with one. We'll discuss all of the options next, right here on Braves Today. Welcome back to Braves Today, Lindsay Crosby, and I'm just really kind of enjoying the ability to go through the World Series odds now and how they keep changing. Again, the Braves are still kind of leading in the Tier 2 of the National League. A lot of comments that I got on this, by the way, whether it was in our Discord, links in the episode description, or it was in the YouTube comments for the video yesterday, is that the Braves are probably in the right place, the top of Tier 2 in the National League, but the New York Mets absolutely do not deserve to be in the top tier for the National League, or for the World Series. Plus 1,100, they're tied for fourth best odds, because they made the NLCS once. They didn't make the playoffs the second year, and the Mets are going to Mets, just no matter what happens. LOL Mets is a thing. I just think it's really funny that, FanDuel understands how much money Mets fans are going to put on this, and so they have the Mets as really good odds, just to try to get action on it. I think that's absolutely hilarious. Shout out to Braves Today sponsor FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com or download the FanDuel app today if you're ready to get started. Okay, non-tender deadline is today. We've seen big trades at the non-tender deadline before. It was 2 years ago. The Braves made a massive deal to get Aaron Bummer. They moved out multiple different players. Michael Soroka, Nicky Lopez, Braden Shoemaker, lots of guys out there to clear space on the 40-man roster. They don't have to clear space on the 40-man roster. I do think you may see a move or two tomorrow, but they don't have to. They can tender all of these guys. They'll still be at 37 spots on the 40-man roster. They've already made a deal with one of these guys. Vidal Brujan was announced on Thursday night as having agreed to a split contract for 2026. What a split contract is technically a minor league deal that has a provision that says if you make the majors, you'll go from this dollar amount to this dollar amount. So he's making it's a minor league deal at a minor league salary. We don't know what it is. It could be $250,000, $500,000, whatever. And in the split, if he makes the majors, the contract becomes $1 million, $900,000, whatever, something like that. But the big deal here is because that's a minor league deal and he was out of options, now he can come to spring training, he can battle for a job. If he doesn't win a job, they can start him in Gwinnett. And without having options, Vidal Brujan would have had to be, in essence, waived, DFA'd. They would have probably lost him at the end of spring training because they couldn't just put him in the minors. Well, now he's technically on a minor league deal. He is still on the 40-man roster, I believe, is how that works. But he is on a split contract. He can be put in the minor leagues without losing him to a waiver claim, to a DFA, whatever. But outside of that, you've got 6 other players. One of them is very obvious. Mauricio Dubon's projected for a $5.8 million salary in his final year of arbitration before he becomes a free agent. It's possible you see the Braves give him a 2-year deal or a 1 plus a club option instead of giving him just tendering him a contract and maybe going to arbitration on this number. I'm thinking about when Orlando Arcia won the starting shortstop job and they gave him, I believe it was a 3-year deal with a club option for the 4th year. It covered 23, 24, 25 and had a club option for 26, which they ended up not exercising because they cut him. And Atlanta's now paying a $1 million buyout of that club option. But it's possible Dubon gets like a 1-1 or a 2-year deal plus a club option or whatever. And we'll see. We'll find out tomorrow. And even if they tender a guy a contract and intend to take him to arbitration, they can still negotiate a long-term deal after that. The actual deadline to exchange figures and decide to go to an arbitration trial isn't until later in the offseason. Outside of that, there's some obvious answers and there's some questions. Dylan Lee, $1.9 million. They're absolutely tendering him a deal. This is zero question. They're going to bring Dylan Lee back. They'll probably just pay him $2 million or whatever and not even go to a trial. Okay. After that, by the way, he has 2 more. He's not a free agent until 2029. He's 31 years old, so they get him for 31, 32, and 33, and becomes a free agent at the age of 34. So there you go. Eli White is projected at $1.2 million. My expectation is that they probably tender him a deal as well. It's entirely possible, again, that they're planning on signing an outfield big bat and they think he's an extra player. If they sign a shortstop and a big bat, you don't have to keep Eli White. I still think they will. I think they should. He's got a lot that he brings to the table. He's still relatively affordable. But I think they'll probably tender him. Alek Manoah, $2.2 million. If it's me, I'm tendering him a contract. And I know people think, well, he's not actually been that good. He's really struggled with the pitch clock and all of that. The injury and everything. But what folks don't understand is how good he was at his best. If you've forgotten, Alek Manoah was an all-star and the third place finisher for Cy Young in 2022. He went 16-7 with a 2.24 ERA in 31 starts. Pitched 196 and 2/3 innings. He wasn't bad. And then even in 24, he wasn't terrible before he went down. 5 starts, 3.70 ERA, more strikeouts than innings, goes down, has surgery. Last year, coming back, when he got to AAA, 7 starts, 2.97 ERA. He wasn't bad in AAA. Now, I think some of that was a mirage. I don't think he pitched as well as a 2.97 ERA would make you believe. But the upside here is phenomenal. We know that Jeremy Hefner is very good at pitching development. It makes sense that Jeremy Hefner could help him get back to where he was prior to the injury. And at $2.2 million, if the upside is third place Cy Young finisher, you tender him a contract 10 times out of 10. He does still have a minor league option, so it's not like he has to make your major league roster or you lose him. You can send him to Gwinnett. He can pitch in Gwinnett and work on finding himself. It's not a big deal. You absolutely tender him a contract. The real question here, the serious question, is Joey Wentz and Jose Suarez. Combined, they are $2.6 million in arbitration. Suarez is 1.5, his final year of arbitration. Wentz is 1.1 in his first year of arbitration as a Super 2 player. So he has 4 arbitration years. He's a free agent in 2030. I feel like if there's any of these two that you're not going to tender, it's probably Suarez, simply because the Braves have passed him through waivers and signed him in Gwinnett multiple times. Now, he made a really good start against Washington to end the year. He worked as a starter in Gwinnett when they brought him back, and then made a really good start. And I do wonder if this is something where the Braves are going to try and build Jose Suarez into a starter. I've talked to a friend that covers the Angels. The Angels tried to do this and didn't have a lot of success. But at the same time, that's the Angels, and they're not a very good development organization. Jose Suarez throws 5 pitches, including 2 different fastballs, a 4-seamer and a sinker. Yes, he needs a cutter. He has a changeup, which is not bad, a slider, and a curveball. It's a really odd movement of the curveball. It's not a typical or standard curveball. He literally threw like 6 of them last year in like 295 pitches. So I think there's options here. He used to throw a cutter as recently as 2024. He threw a sweeper as recently as 2024. He's a tinkerer. And I think getting a guy like that together with a guy like Jeremy Hefner could end up being a really interesting combination for the cost of $1.5 million. Even if he caps out as long man in the pen, who can make a spot start here and there, that's not a bad investment. And while we talked yesterday on the show about Anthopoulos not wanting to run a 6-man bullpen, you still need guys who can flex between spot starts, long relief, and traditional relief roles. Jeremy Hefner's a big fan of having guys who do not have defined roles, who can take multiple innings and do all of those things. I do think Jose Suarez is a good candidate to do that. Joey Wentz probably gets tendered simply because he's a lefty and it's his final year of team control. Sorry, it's not his final year of team control. He has 3 years of team control after this. That's one of those things where if you non-tender him, somebody likely picks him up, because if you can find a way to get all of the blue off of his StatCast, Atlanta changed what he did, had him throw a lot more cutters when they got him, all that good stuff. You've got multiple seasons of a pretty affordable starter. So Atlanta probably either trades him or tenders him a contract tonight. I don't know for a fact what they're going to do, obviously. He does throw 2 of the 3 fastballs, or the 4-seamer and a cutter. He's got a slider, a curveball, and a changeup. I don't really think any of them are that great. A little more consistency in the cutter would be nice. It does bridge the 4-seamer and the slider well. He could make it the primary fastball and throw more curveballs and let the slider kind of be the bridge pitch. The changeup is he really only uses it against righties to have something that runs away from their bats. There's work that can be done here with both Jose Suarez and Joey Wentz. Again, the big thing here is all of the non-Mauricio Dubon guys together are like $6 or $7 million bucks. It's not a lot of money. If you take out Dylan Lee, who we know you are going to keep, it's like $6 million for all of the rest together. Manoah, Suarez, White, and Wentz. There's no reason that is a drop in the bucket. There's no reason to not give them those deals. Because if you decide in spring training to move on from any of these guys, if you actually go to arbitration and they get that projected arbitration salary as an award in arbitration, then if you cut them in spring training, you owe them 15 or 30 days of salary. That's it. It's called termination pay. And depending on where you are in spring training when you cut them, you owe them either 15 or 30 days. So honestly, there's no downside to tendering these guys. Because if you don't keep them, you owe them, it's 170, what is it, 162 games and 170, I think it's 8 days is how long the season is. You pay somebody 15 days out of that. You're paying him, 5% of the season? Oh no, we can't afford that. But if Jeremy Hefner can unlock something, can you imagine a bullpen that has Grant Holmes as a leverage reliever who can take multiple innings and has both Jose Suarez and Joey Wentz as guys who can spot start for you if somebody goes down? They can cover bulk innings if you lose a starter in the second inning to a comebacker. They can take multiple innings. They can give you handedness stuff. Like, having guys who can flex around those roles is incredibly valuable. And that's why Grant Holmes was so good in 2024. He did all of that stuff. He would spot start for you. He would cover multiple innings. He'd work as a one-inning reliever. He'd get whiffs. He'd get ground balls if he had to. Suarez and Wentz can be diet versions of Grant Holmes, minus the hair, if Jeremy Hefner can work some magic. We'll find out, end of the day today, what the Braves are going to do. If the schedule permits, I'll try to hop on Saturday morning and do another show to kind of break down, hey, here's what the Braves did on all these decisions. Try to get that in, make up for not having a show on Tuesday, and just so we don't have to wait 3 days to get a little bit of analysis on these tender decisions. In the meantime, do me a favor. If you're listening on audio, a 5-star review would be awesome. Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when we drop the next episode. And subscriptions, free or paid, bravestoday.com, really help us out a ton. Until next time, this has been Braves Today.